Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, good morning everyone. We are from a group of English Intact, and the members are Nur Lail Septiana and me, Nabila Farihatu Nisa. And today we are going to talk about clause. Let's check it out. And what is clause? A clause is a group of words that contains a subject and a verb. And there are two kinds of clauses. First is independent clause and the second is dependent clause. The first material is independent clause. An independent clause is a complete thought, a sentence. It has the main subject and verb of a sentence. It's also called main clause. The example is the students study. Here, the students as a subject and study as a verb. So, the students study is independent clause. Next, dependent clause. A dependent clause is not a complete thought and is not a sentence. The dependent clause gives incomplete information. It must be linked to an independent clause, and it's also called a subordinate clause. The example is when the students study. It's not a complete sentence, so that it's called dependent clause. Next, dependent clause divided into three clauses: adverb clause, adjective clause, and noun clause. And we will discuss it one by one. The first explanation is about adverb clause. This type of dependent clause modifies or describes a verb, adjective, or adverb in the independent clause. Adverb clauses are introduced by a subordinate conjunction, a kind of linking word. It tells how, when, where, why, or to what extent. An adverb clause is used in a sentence to add relevant and descriptive information to our content. Okay, let's move to the types of adverb clause. There are adverb clause of time, cause, condition, contrast, manner, and place. And you can read the conjunction of adverb clause at the slide. Okay, before we're going to discuss about the examples, first I'll explain about the position of adverb clause. When an adverb clause is placed at the start of a sentence, it's usually followed by a comma. Commas separate the adverb clause in the middle of the sentence. And when placed at the end of the sentence, an adverb clause doesn't require any additional punctuation. Okay, there are four examples here. Salwa went inside because it was raining. He played in the garden until the sun set. The adverb conjunction is at the end of the sentence, so that it doesn't need any punctuation. So it has no comma. The next example, because it was raining, Salwa went inside. If my mother calls, please tell her that I will be late. The adverb connector is placed at the beginning of the sentence, so it's usually followed by comma. Because it was raining, comma, Salwa went inside. Okay then, that's all of my explanation, and the next material will be delivered by Nur Lail Septiana.
Okay, I am Nur Lail Septiana and I will continue Nabila Farihatu Nisa. Okay, I will explain the dependent clause. There are adjective clause and noun clause. Adjective clause. Definition of adjective clause, also known as a relative clause, which is included in the dependent clause. In English language structure, this clause is one of the important elements to perfect a sentence both in sentences and in writing. Adjective or relative clause serves to explain nouns and pronouns or words in a sentences. This clause cannot stand alone. It must be paired with a noun or pronoun to form new information. Adjective or relative clause must also be combined with relative pronouns and relative adverbs consisting of that, where, when, who, which. Example, the first, an angry boy bit his friend's hand. Second, a 70-year-old man whose house was recently struck by lightning said he lost everything. Adjective clause formulas in sentences. When using adjective clause in a sentence, you need to memorize the formula below. Relative pronouns, positive or negative subject plus verb. Relative pronoun, which, who, that can function as a subject if not another subject. The position of the adjective clause in English sentences always follow the nouns and pronouns that are explained. The noun or pronoun in the main clause can function as a subject, object, or subject complement in a sentences. Relative adverb plus subject plus verb. Apart from the relative pronoun, there are also relative adverb when, where, why that can be compared in the use of the adjective clause. Relative adverb serves to explain or explain a noun as a description of place, adverb of time, and also reason. The grammar used in the use of the adjective clause can be adjusted according to the conditions. The verb used can be verbs 1, 2, or 3 according to context you want to talk. Adjective clause type. What type of adjective clause do you need to know? There are restrictive as well as non-restrictive. For more detail, let's check the brief explanation of each type below. Restrictive is an independent and dependent sentence that is bound. Restrictive clause serves to identify the noun described in a sentences. The restrictive clause in sentences usually use that to clarify or combine a noun. Example sentences: I prefer to use a smartphone that can capture great picture. That in this sentence is used to describe the main noun, the smartphone, as the main object in the sentence. And then adjective clause type non-restrictive. On the other hand, restrictive is also non-restrictive. Actually, this non-restrictive existence is not really necessary because it is only as additional information in explaining the main noun in the object. In non-restrictive use, usually use a comma preceding a relative pronoun. Example sentences: Michelle, whose mom is passed away 6 years ago, developed his business overseas. And in these sentences, there is the description whose mom is passed away 6 years ago will not affect the whole meaning of the whole clause. If the description is not added, the sentence will still stand and be fully understood. Okay? And then example of adjective clause sentence. Reporting from your dictionary, there are several examples of sentence with the use of adjective clause that you can learn, including 1. Chocolate, which many people adore, is fattening. 2. People who are smart follow the rules. 3. I can remember the time when cell phones didn't excite. 4. Sally has a friend whose daughter lives in China. And then 5. The wine that finers produce in Tuscany is not cheap. 6. The reason why Sandra went to law school is that she didn't want to be a doctor. 7. She is the woman who works hard to support his only child. 8. The man whom you saw last night is my uncle. 9. The blue short-haired woman whose bike had a flat tire works as a waiter at Wendy's. And then the last, Casper, which is my dog, is very cute. And then non-clause. A non-clause is a dependent clause or dependent clause which functions as a noun. Does it depend on the clause? It is a clause that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence because the dependent clause doesn't convey a complete though even though it is a subject and a verb. But while non-clause can function as sentences components such as subject, verb object, preposition object, and subject complement and can start with the pronoun it. Example, one, the person whom I like has a pair of blue eyes. Orang yang saya sukai memiliki sepasang mata biru. 2. A country which locates near Indonesia is Australia. Sebuah negara yang terletak di dekat Indonesia adalah Australia. 3. The student listen to what the teacher said. Para siswa mendengarkan apa yang dikatakan oleh para guru. Oke. Jika masih bingung dengan non-clause, mari kita jabarkan dulu ya. Noun, I bought a car. Pronoun, I bought it. And then non-clause, the car that I bought is expensive. Rumus non-clause. Non-clause dapat diawali oleh non-clause markers atau subordinator berupa question word, if, atau whether, dan that. Nah, ini untuk lebih jelasnya sudah tertera di bawah ini. Ada contoh kalimat non-clause juga, di sini juga sudah ada. Ada if or whether, ada that, and then there are grammar like past tense plus future tense, past tense plus present tense, past tense plus past future, past tense plus past tense, past tense plus past perfect. There are question about the non-clause. Okay. Thank you for your attention and thank you very much.